The honourable member for Hamilton East. Well,
I want to thank my friend from Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. That's as close as my French will come. But he's made some excellent points, and we need to really consider. And my friend from the north that just asked the question about people working at airlines. Imagine if you were earning $10 an hour and you've got 4 children at home, and you're the sole provider, and you've got a technical job that requires your complete attention, and you're sitting there worrying about how you're going to pay the bills at the end of the month. It just strikes me as so sad that people can't, from the other side, can't seem to even see this. And even if it was solely 400 people, that this was improving their lives, why in the world wouldn't they want to improve their lives? It doesn't make sense. I'm going to repeat a phrase that my friend used. Mr. Speaker, New Democrats believe Canadians who work hard and play by the rules should be able to make a decent living. I have watched since the 1980s the income disparity grow in this country. And it got worse in 1996 when our friends down here in the Liberal Party cut out the federal minimum wage. They set into, it's about leadership at the federal level. It's not about dollars and cents. And coming back to my friend's proposition, if the federal government takes a lead in increasing the minimum wage, then that's a guidance for the provinces to do the same. You might have noticed during your speech I was writing around the corners of my speech. I tend to do that because you prompted some good ideas.
Could I again direct, the second time it's happened this morning, the comment should be directed to the chair, not to other members of the chamber.
I'm so in the habit of talking to my good friend here, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the guidance. I appreciate it. The other thing, people who are working for $10 an hour aren't getting benefits. So they have other things that they're paying for over and above. It is just, it's so disgusting to think about where we're leaving Canadians. This should be a country of equals, at least at the point of living in dignity. Over the summer, we've heard, and I'm sure other people I've heard, from Canadians who say, we're not earning enough. The country has been turned upside down. So I'm sure that they would agree with an increase of minimum wage, both federally and across the board. Now, I can assure this House and Canadian workers who might be listening today that the next federal government, an NDP government, will make this happen. And Mr. Speaker, I would add again that our friends the Liberals most assuredly erred when they cancelled the federal minimum wage. Now it's up for the NDP here today to start to undo the damage that was started over here with the Liberal Party. It's well understood economic facts that improving the minimum wage is a key step to reducing income inequality and building a fair economy. I hear noise from the Liberal side of the House. I guess they can't get enough attention these days. Over the summer, we have seen fast food workers protesting across the United States, Mr. Speaker, and that's an example of Canadian workers could follow. That's an example that it's a shame that workers have to go to that extent in order to just get a decent wage. Tens of thousands of low-wage American workers took to the streets with strikes and rallies to push, I was going to say for higher salaries, but I should really say for at least some kind of fair salary. As with today's motion, it demonstrates that organizations like the Service Employees International Union, which called upon the U.S. government to raise the federal minimum wage to $15. And they did so, Mr. Speaker, because it's even worse in the U.S. The U.S. minimum wage is currently $7.25 an hour. Think about that for a moment. How far will that get you? How far will that take your family? Mr. Speaker, income inequality around the world has started to generate a similar debate in other countries. It's actually led to some governments making change. Germany introduced its first minimum wage. It's slated now to start in 2015. Now, the German companies are the economic powerhouse, really, of the world today, especially Europe. In Switzerland, people are asking for the Swiss adult to earn a basic income. You'll recall NDP policy for years talked about a guaranteed annual income. Well, it works out on a monthly basis in Switzerland to $2,800 a month. Compare that to $10 an hour, and you'll understand how much more you could do for your families if you had that. Now, Australia is amongst the highest in the world at $17.45 an hour. Now, people who are under 18 years of age earn somewhat less than that. New Democrats, along with workers from across Canada, believe that federal workers in Canada should have their own minimum wage. The Liberals in government removed the federal minimum wage, as we've said repeatedly. Hopefully they have seen the error of that decision and will support this motion here today. Although the noise that we hear from that end, it's hard to decide which way they're going on this. Experts believe that Canada's income inequality is at an all-time high, with approximately 3 million Canadians living below the low-income cutoff. Think about that number for a moment, Mr. Speaker. 3 million Canadians. There are about 1 million Canadians earning minimum wage, 28% of which are over the age of 35. And you think about, you build your life, you're into your 40s or into your 50s, and you're still earning that. 3.8 million workers in the U.S. earn wages at or below the federal minimum. So what we're seeing here in North America is a trend to drive workers' wages low or to keep them low. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives has in the past suggested that Ontario's minimum wage drags people into poverty. Now, in fairness to the Government of Ontario, they just had a modest increase to $11. But the suggestion from the Canadian Centre of Policy Alternatives, that should have been $14.50 an hour to even begin to address poverty. How's my time, Mr. Speaker? Well, we'll get there. To our friends on the other side, you have an opportunity to reinstate a federal minimum wage. Our suggestion is done incrementally to achieve it by 2015. You have the opportunity to do this. Why wait for an NDP government? Why not do it now? You know, this view of the Conservative side of the House about law and order and people doing things right and following the rules, well, Canadians have followed the rules, and they continue to do so. But when the rules hold them back in the manner that this does, you have to shake your head. You have to ask yourself, why in the world would the federal government not institute at least a reasonable minimum wage of $15 an hour? What possible justification they have for not doing that? Because we know, and economists will tell you, that if you increase the minimum wage and you give people more disposable income, guess what they do with it? They spend it, which causes the economy to grow. And yes, the rest of us may have to pay a little bit more in order to ensure that our fellow citizens live in dignity. And I'm sure that if members of the other side stop to really consider that, they'd be prepared to do that. I don't think they're totally unreasonable people, although at times I wonder. You know, more than 94% of the increase in income inequity over the past 35 years occurred under that government, the Liberals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I see your notice that I'm running out of time. I've got about 5 pages, 6 pages more that I could go into here. More. But the reality is, statistics don't matter. What matters is what's happening in people's lives. We can argue statistics, and we heard that from the government side when they asked how many people would this affect. And their figure is extremely low, and some may find ours a bit high. But the reality is you've got Canadians living in poverty, unable to raise their children, unable to educate their children properly in university or anywhere else, who have no chance in life of moving ahead. And they're looking to this federal government to give them a decent wage. And at $15, that is just the beginning, Mr. Speaker. There has to be more done for Canadians. Thank you.